Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:36 by my clock. And start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody.
So just as a quick point of order today, we don't have anyone here taking the minutes. They will be done retroactively using the recording. The only way the audio picks up every word is if you speak into the microphone. So if everyone can do their best, audience members and commissioners, that would be wonderfully appreciated. Thank you.
Very good. I don't think we have any alternates, do we? No. Are you an alternate or are you?
He's not an alternate.
Okay, so we'll have Thad sit for Donna. She's not here. No, she's an alternate too.
I do know that Dan's coming. He said he was going to be a little bit late.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. We still need that, have Thad sub for somebody. Who else do, who? Bob's not here. For Michael, I guess, he's not here. Right. Yeah, so we might as well put that in the record. Bob has announced that he will not be continuing and has submitted his resignation. Public participation, if anyone has anything that is not on the agenda, now would be an excellent time to raise it. Nobody here doing that, so we'll go on to new business. Application 1760, 102 Housatonic Trail. Mr. Bogner.
So the 102 Housatonic Trail, if you guys remember from last meeting,
Yes.
that was issued as a cease and desist.
Okay, so we don't
So-
have another application.
He submitted the survey as well as some elevations and plans for the house.
Okay.
So that is going to be all encompassing. He is going to supplement in some existing conditions so that the board would be able to see both existing and proposed. But his hope is that you could cover everything under the new application, which would be 1760.
Which makes sense. So we will accept the application and then continue with the other matters.
All right, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Scheduling site visits, I'm assuming,
We
right?
will have to schedule site visits for whatever has not been looked at and should be looked at anyway. Application 1759, 21 River Trail. Beneficial maintenance, we'll accept that, schedule a site visit. Application 2027, 278 Southford Road. This one's a little late, but okay. Again, same thing, accept and schedule site visits. Where am I? Next matter is cease and desist for 236 Roxbury Road.
So this was an ongoing continuation of the previous one that we went out there and observed the clearing of the land. I've been in touch with the, I believe he's the project manager there, Richard Warren, who's sent photos. The vegetation is growing in there pretty well. No extra activity has occurred. So from my point of view, they're very correspondent with us in the land use department. It's up to the commission what they want to do with the cease and desist. Do you have?
Well, it's still in existence. Is there any particular reason to lift it? Are there things they want to do that we need to deal with? Do we need to go to look at it again?
Nope, there's nothing continuing. They stopped the work. They did agree to kind of utilize what was already there instead of creating a new berm. So that work has ceased. It's no longer a part of their plan for
Okay.
addressing those issues of the, there was a failure in one of the tanks, I believe.
Okay, so what's the best thing, what would you suggest? That we lift the cease and desist, subject to they're not doing any further work?
We could wait for one more commission meeting to make sure that the vegetation absolutely does go, grow in.
It's not gonna interfere with anything they need to do if we do that, I don't believe.
Correct, nope,
So why don't we do that?
okay,
Is this the ONG property we're talking about?
correct.
Didn't I read someplace that we were waiting for like a planting plan or something like that on that one? No?
No, not on that one. They
Okay.
had agreed to
No.
move forward, and they did some of the seeding in that area,
Okay.
and that is what has been growing back.
Yeah, but that was good. That's what we wanted done, so that's
Correct.
not an issue. My notes don't reflect anything about
Okay,
planting plan.
okay.
In fact, Dan was pretty happy. He thought it looked pretty good the way it was, subject to getting some grass and stuff grown.
Yeah,
So I think we're
and
okay.
vegetation has started growing, so it looks much better than it had.
Okay,
So do we want a motion to cease and desist?
I'll move to continue it to
Continue
the
it?
next meeting, so we can observe it and make sure things are growing in properly.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I move, Carl seconds.
Does he?
I'll second.
Beautiful, thank you, Carl.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Show cause for 102 Housatonic Trail.
So with this,
Go ahead.
you did submit the application, so we can cover everything that is all encompassing as part of the application and any comments that the commissioners may have. It would just be, if you feel comfortable lifting the cease and desist and covering it with the new permit. I believe it was 1760? 1760, correct.
So the new permit is 1760. Okay, and, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think on that, we can probably lift the cease and desist. We have the other one in effect. We don't need it right now. Okay?
Correct.
So
Okay.
I'll move to lift the cease and desist in light of the new applications we've received. That would be application 1760.
Does that mean that they will then be able to continue construction activities prior to our next permit
No.
meeting?
No, I don't think so, because we have a new application that we have not reviewed and approved.
Right,
So they don't have permission to do anything.
okay, so then if they start again, we just have to
Stop again.
stop work
Yeah,
order?
the new application kind of makes the old cease and desist moot.
Okay.
And the applicant has been in contact with me even
Okay.
to go in and install the silt fencing, come out there properly, make
Oh,
sure
yeah, how did that
everything's
work
good.
out?
That worked
You were
out,
out there like 3 o'clock in the morning.
no, that worked out pretty well. You know, he really did address and try his best to get what he could. He's surrounded both embankments with silt fencing. It looked good. He backfilled it properly. There is some hay bales out there as well. So he's really trying to work with the commission here to
That's-
get everything
That's
addressed.
good to hear. Great.
I'll second the motion to lift the cease and desist at 102 Housatonic Trail.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Takes care of that one. We're moving on to 471 Old Poverty Road. Okay, this is,
That's the land trust that we've
Skipping
been,
oh, they asked us
Going-
to do nothing with this until
Yes.
they had it resolved?
yeah, they
Correct.
have in litigation
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, so that'll just continue.
Yep.
We don't have to do anything with it. We are now going on to old business. First one is application 1758, 114 Manor Road. We were here
We were out there on June 6th. So this application, it's to construct a two-story, single-family home. There's also going to be the supporting utilities as the septic tank, stormwater and erosion controls, driveway construction, some decks as well. And all of those are indicated on the survey plan that you guys have. There's also clearing and tree cutting proposed to accommodate the new stairs down to the floating dock. That part of it, I want the commissioners to understand, is not within our jurisdiction to comment on. So that's gonna be the floating dock, the ramp, and then the, I believe there was a concrete structure and well. That's all part of First Light's
It
review.
is, but I think if we want, we could provide them with comment. I went on this one, and just so that everybody recognizes the property was, there's really nothing there. The old house was taken out. The wellhead is still there. Not much else. The report, which I drafted, made some suggestions in terms of moving the access to the dock over to the lower portion of the embankment. The embankment is very steep. I'm guessing about 20 feet high, maybe even a
Sounds
little
pretty close,
higher.
yeah.
About a 60-degree slope. So anything they do with this is gonna be a big mess. It's gonna wind up with stuff dumped into the water, and even if you're very careful, I don't see any way to avoid that. And I have concerns about how the sides of that are gonna be reinforced for stairs. This is a very difficult site.
Well,
Go ahead.
also, the trees, they were talking about removing some trees, weren't they?
Yes.
And that's really one of the most negative parts of this whole thing. Because these trees have roots that go down 20, 30 feet down, and they're holding that embankment the way it is. You take any number of those trees out of there, and you're just gonna have a mudslide.
So there were 16 or 17 trees that I counted which were flagged for removal. And then as part of the application, it did call out the trees that are within the area of the new stairs proposed.
It did.
They're calling to dig up the root system and that.
Yeah, they're also proposing taking down some shrubbery and stuff, presumably to make a nicer view from the deck, which goes out to within 5 feet of the drop-off.
Is this 50 or 100-foot setback in this area?
It's a named watercourse, that's the 100-foot.
Okay, thank you. So,
I just think,
most of this house is in the 100-foot setback then?
That'd be correct.
the house is located toward the back of the property. The prior house was located much closer to the river. There's a hole where the former basement was. I gather they're gonna fill that in. I didn't really have a problem with that. I had a huge problem with, as Thad mentioned, they're basically clear-cutting that entire slope. That's unnecessary. It will destabilize the slope, and I do not think we should be approving anything like that, for those reasons. There are alternatives. It certainly would not be difficult to relocate the stairs. I gotta get my directions right. Which way is north on this thing? Okay, to the east, so where it's not as steep, and it's not as, the bank is not as steep, and the bank is not as high.
To the south?
Or to the south, excuse me, I looked at it the wrong way.
It's okay.
If they want to look off the deck, there's probably room to move the house toward the center of the property more. I don't really care, that's their issue.
Does this, so this is this 45 to 60 degree bank that you're talking about?
Yes.
And then does the property slowly, does it
It's
continue to
essentially
slope up?
It looks like it
Very
levels out.
gently. If you go into the northwest corner, just off the property line, it rises quite steeply. There's like a knob up there. And while we were out there, we did discuss some issues with that, because that's going to direct water at the house. That's not really our problem particularly, but depending on what they do with it, when the water goes around the house, it's then going to be directing directly into the river, and there is, I think there's a substantial risk of erosion in a couple of good-sized storms of that stormwater coming off the knob around the house and then cutting down, particularly if the, excuse me, plantings along the embankment are cut down,
Now-
which appears to be the goal.
Now that I have found the 100-foot line, the entire thing is in
The
there.
entire thing is in.
Well, there's not enough property to put it, something outside of it anyway. Is there Is this the applicant?
I'm the applicant's representative.
Okay. Are you an engineer?
So my name is Jesse Judson. I'm a licensed land surveyor. My office is at 52 Main Street, Seymour, Connecticut. I'm representing the applicants, Jason Arcuri and Matthew Como for this. The plans have been prepared by myself and James DeMayo, professional engineer, as well as Abigail Adams, a landscape architect. But I could answer, I'll try to do my best to answer
Okay,
any
could
questions
you
or concerns that you have.
Could you explain to me why the house is situated in that manner instead of like turning it 90 degrees?
Sure, well, part of that comes down to, all right, so this is a pretty small site. It looks large on this map, but this is a 1 in 10 inch scale map.
Right.
This parcel is only 15,000 square feet. I'll back up a little and try to give you a little history on it.
Okay.
When the applicants bought the property, it was about a 10,000 square foot parcel. It was this L-shaped parcel on this property. Okay, it had an existing house on it that was only about 18 feet off the river, right at the top of the slope, a couple sheds on it, an existing driveway. They purchased the property, and then they approached the adjacent landowner that owned this vacant parcel here, which was about 4,500 square feet. So they bought that property, merged it with this, so we have a little more room to work. Okay? Because before that, they were really limited to really restructuring and rebuilding this existing house where it was, only 18 feet off the river. That was one of the options. You know, the house was there, it was existing, they could have
Right.
rebuilt it in that location.
Yep.
So they bought this property, we merged it together, filed all the required documents and the land records, et cetera. So they're proposing to construct a new house. You know, the footprint of this house is pretty small. It's only 24 by 36. It's a 2-story house, 3 bedrooms, not that large. It does have an attached garage. So with the attached garage on here, we have the zoning setbacks, which are 15 feet from the sidelines. And I don't recall the exact distance from the front yard. But with the setbacks, the house is pretty much up against the setback, where you have to be 15 feet and we're only 17 feet in this area. Now, it's a small lot, it's on septic system. We have to provide a septic system area on this parcel. So we've done testing with the Houstonic Valley Health Department, and soil conditions are actually very, very good on the parcel. It's all sand and gravel. We dug down 10 feet. There's no ledge, no water. It's very nice, well-drained material. We're proposing a well up at the high point of the property, the upper corner of the property. That's very close to the property line. We have a 75-foot radius that we have to maintain from that well for a septic system. So it gives us this little area over here for the septic system. So we've placed that really in the only area that we can. We've also have to place the septic system more 50 feet from the river. So the septic system is about 51 feet from the river. So because of the placement of the septic system, we've used the smallest system that we possibly can on this to get it approved, or to get it sufficient for the health department. That septic system area and the well sort of designates, doesn't leave us much room for a house or its orientation. This is consistent with basically the orientation that was there on the house. We're just moving it closer to the road, and we're farther. Now we're close to 40 feet from the edge of the river, where the old house was only 18 feet from the edge of the river.
Can I ask you about, what about the stairs going down to the river?
Sure. So as you mentioned, this bank is about 20 feet high. The existing slope's probably 1-to-1 in this area. Even over in this lower area, the slope is still about 1.2-to-1. And you're about 20 feet up in either location. This area, because of the existing foundation hole and everything, was chosen. And plus, the way the river comes down, it's sort of like the river sort of flows past a sort of a protected area there. So this area was chosen, so the bulkhead is sort of back behind this cut in the river, and it's not going to be hit by as much current if it was down here. Any of these slopes where we put the staircase, we would have to cut the slope down, because the slope's like I said, 1 or 1.2-to-1. So basically every foot horizontal, it changes a foot vertically. To get the staircase in there, we need to flatten this slope out to about 1.5-to-1, to about the same slope as a set of stairs. So, this particular plan, we're disturbing about 1,000 square feet in here. 200 square feet of that is on First Light's property, and about 800 square feet is upslope of that on the applicant's property. That's going to be regraded. The bulkhead will be installed, and we're proposing what they call slope grid on this to stabilize it. It's essentially high-density plastic cells that are 6 inches deep, After it's excavated to the proper elevation, filter fabric's laid down, then this slope grid is placed on the slope. It's attached with like 2-foot-long J-hook rebars into the slope, and then these grids are filled with 2-inch stone. So, you know, the water can percolate through it, and they've had very successful results with this material stabilizing these slopes. Hope I answered your question.
It's
In this
kinda hard
area, in this area,
When you're looking
that-
at it, when you're just out there looking at it, it looks pretty challenging.
Don't disagree, you know, it's about 1,000 square feet that we're disturbing in there, you know, that we're gonna do. The applicant is proposing to cut some of these other trees, a couple of these larger trees. There's a large oak tree at the top of the bank in here. That tree, if you look at it, and it was even included in, we submitted a report from an arborist, that particular tree was pointed out because it's got some base rot on it, so that tree needs to be removed just because it's gonna fall anyways. And then there's another large oak tree that's sort of leaning towards the house. As far as, you know, the applicant was proposing to cut some of the other trees along the bank, leave the stumps in place so they, you know, the ground wouldn't be disturbed, and the low-lying vegetation is gonna remain there. It's not being cleared out. Existing vegetation is gonna stay. You know, we could certainly revisit that and, you know, leave the majority of those trees on there if it made the commission, you know, feel better.
Could you explain again why, or explain what the opposition is to simply moving that stairway south? We were out there looking at it. It looked like it actually would be less steep and a little lower, less disturbance to that bank. And that bank is, it just, well, you've seen it. It looks like it's going to fall in any time.
Yes, as far as moving it south, you know, like I said, you still have the same elevation. Actually, up here, because of the old foundation that was there, the ground is down like at elevation 116 or so. So we don't have to dig a hole here. If we slide this down, we still have that 20-foot elevation change to deal with on the slope. We would still have to cut into this bank, and now we're also cutting into the slope downhill from the septic system. We try not to do that, and then, you know, just, in general, we picked this location for the bulkhead because it is slightly protected here. As you come down the river, it actually cuts in a little here, so they just felt it'd be more protected from the current and it wouldn't get, you know, undermined or.
I'm very familiar with this area, and it's not gonna make any difference where you put that dock on that property.
Okay,
The outside of that corner receives the maximum flow
yeah.
in that area. The river's gotten shallower over the years, and you're gonna have a hard time keeping a dock at that location, no matter where you put it. A question on the in-ground subsurface stormwater retention system.
Yes,
That should have an emergency overflow, I'm assuming?
it has a, yeah, it does have basically a PVC inspection port that comes up with a graded cap on it, so water can bubble up out of the top of that should it get filled. And there also can be overflow or divert devices installed on the downspouts, so if that system does fill up, the water would just, it comes out of the downspouts on the ground like you would if it wasn't piped to this
And
system.
what do you have going in there? You have the
All the
All
gutters,
the roof drainage.
All the roof leaders, yeah, and the
roof
gutters for the
leaders.
house, the house and porch.
Are you also going to have a footing around the house?
The footing drain is going out to daylight, just past it here. Like I said, we dug several test pits, a couple test pits upslope, and several test pits down this area. We went down 10, 11 feet. There is no evidence of groundwater down, you know, health department said we could set the septic system 8 feet down the ground. So we really don't anticipate the footing drains to do much of anything in this particular situation.
I notice you have a delineation of the 1% annual chance flood boundary of an elevation of 111.5 feet,
Yes.
which is 3/4 or so the way up that bank.
Yes.
Could you find out what lesser storms would do as far as the elevation, like a 5 and 10-year storm?
It's,
Right now, I haven't been to this site yet.
okay.
What's the nature of the bank now? Are there any improvements there?
No, there's no
No.
improvements on that.
Okay,
at this
so
time.
I'm assuming that that bank is somewhat undercut then, at the water
It's
line?
not, I wouldn't say it's undercut, no, but it is very steep. I personally went along the bottom of it, shooting the elevations, and it's,
Well, those trees, the tree trunks are holding it together right now.
The concrete abutment to hold the dock is at an elevation of 102.
yes, the top of the concrete bulkhead is at elevation 102.
Is this an action date for this application?
I don't think so.
I mean, you mean extending it?
Yes.
You can absolutely do that, yep.
Want to see
You can
it?
do that up to two
I think
meetings as
so.
long as
I think you
the,
do.
Because there's only 4 of us, and you need to have all 4 votes for this to clear tonight.
Okay.
You have one more meeting.
Yeah, let's defer it. I think that's a good idea.
Without extensions, obviously.
Right.
One more observation, it's not really part of our purview, but the closer that you can keep that dock to the shore, the better chances you have of keeping it on your property,
Okay.
so that it doesn't show up down at my property.
Yeah, fair enough.
So if
You
you
don't
have,
wanna do
if you
that?
have a ramp coming out and then you have the other dock that way, you won't be holding back as much water when that river is running. So I suggest you consider making it like a T,
Okay.
and then you're also gonna wanna put guy wires or rigid pipes or something on each corner to help support it.
I
We'll
believe they
pass
show
that
a
along
detail
to
like
the
that.
structural
sorry? I
engineer.
I believe they show a detail
the
like that.
landscape
They're showing
architect that's
eyelets
designed
being
that
attached to
portion.
the concrete end wall that appear to be attached to the dock.
Okay.
One question, if I may. Going back to the installation of the slope grid, the details show that you could use an infill of either topsoil or gravel. In light of the fact that there's so many trees and shrubs or undergrowth or whatever being removed from that slope, are there any plans to consider doing some sort of a ground cover to help stabilize the slope?
The proposal was for the 2-inch stone, but there was some consideration as far as adding some plantings into some of these grids, because the slope grid does allow you to put plantings in it. Part of the stone allows water to go through. It's,
Understood.
water rushing over the top of it,
But with
eroding
the
the bank.
the size of the grids is minimal, so
Yeah.
you're restricted by the size of plant.
Right, yeah.
That you can put in them to help stabilize.
Yeah.
So if some sort of a ground cover or something else could be considered possibly to help stabilize that slope in the final condition. And I don't know, once again, it's outside of our purview, evidently, the construction of the end wall and the dock, et cetera. And I don't know if these are the plans that are being submitted to First Light, but there doesn't appear to be any sort of, just a general comment, there doesn't appear to be anything on the plan sheet showing how you're going to perform this work in the dry. And as far as the installation of cofferdams, et cetera, because you're excavating down into the riverbed.
Gotcha, yes. Again, that's dealing with First Light. The engineers are working with them. I do have there was some additional plans submitted as far as the landscape architects and then the structural engineer that proposed the bulkhead and stuff, had those details and stuff on some of the plans we detailed.
Do you know if there's, in this particular area, if there's any fish in the river? Because I'm sure Deep Fisheries is gonna be interested in this project.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Is this a 0 net increase in runoff for this property?
Don't believe that's been calculated. I can't answer that. Traditionally, this is at the bottom of the watershed here. We are treating that stormwater quality volume that's required, by DEP. We're collecting that water. And generally, at the bottom of the watershed, they ask us not to retain, the general design is not to retain that water, because you want to get it out of there before all the water
Well,
from upslope comes down.
Yeah, in this particular case, I think it's more about the potential for erosion. I'm assuming that the original house in there was probably more like a summer cottage.
Um,
Do you know how many square foot it was?
I do. It was roughly
Did it have like,
800 square feet.
They
It
have
had like 3 bedrooms in it. I don't know if they lived there.
have a
on it.
dirt driveway?
It's a gravel driveway. paved
Gravel
apron,
driveway?
Gravel driveway.
And this driveway will be millings,
Yes,
the whole thing?
yes, from after the paved apron. The driveway itself after the apron, it's only, it's about 55 feet long. And then curves into the garage.
I have a concern, as I mentioned before, about water coming off that knob to the north, going toward, if I remember the contours correctly.
We've looked at that some, and I reviewed it with the engineer. We did pull in the 2023 Connecticut-wide R topo, and that's designated on the red lines in here. And I've walked up the slope. As you get up this bank, you can see this bump in the contours. There's like this natural cut in here where this water comes down, and when they're calculating water areas, they usually go perpendicular to the contours. So any water coming in this area is gonna flow out through this natural divide that's shown in these contours. And if you walk up the slope, you could see that. Inspecting out there, the leaves have been on the ground since last November, so 6 or 8 months. There's no signs of any water coming off of this hill. And the soils out there are very well drained. There's no areas where any leaves have been moved or there's scour or any evidence of water coming off of this slope.
Okay.
The area we're grading behind the house, where we are regrading, it's minimal. It's 1,200 square feet. And looking at, from the contours, I sort of drew on here, the area that's contributing to the house, it sort of forms this triangle area. Any water over here is gonna come down past the house, just like it always has, then hit this flatter area, and then slowly dissipate and move across, this lawn area. We only have about 6,000 square feet of area that comes down and hits the back of this house. While we are regrading a little behind the garage, just so, so we can get a man door out the back of the garage, we feel there's gonna be very minimal water off of there. And as it does come down from the end of this grading where it flattens out, you have about 70 feet here to the top of this bank. That's gonna be lawn area, landscaped. Any water that does come down through there, it's got 70 feet of relatively flat lawn area to spread out, dissipate, get slowed down before it comes down anywhere near this bank. And like I said, from inspection out there, we really don't anticipate much water coming off of that hill. There's no evidence of it now.
Why disturb so much of the bank when you're really just trying to get access down to the dock?
It really comes down to the steepness of the bank, and we are to just bowl that out so we can get us at a staircase in there.
Yeah, but the staircase is 4 feet wide, and you're going, what, 55 feet wide? Is that what you said it
Yes,
was?
roughly,
it's,
40, about 50
So
feet.
what's the point of that?
I mean, we
Is
could
it
bowl it out
aesthetics?
a little, we could bowl it out a little smaller, probably. We might be able to reduce that some, and get that cut a little narrower in there. It was really just blending to the existing contours and,
The staircase that you're showing, does that meet the building code for not having another landing partway down?
according to the landscape architect, yes.
That's something you might want to follow up on with the town, because at that slope, I'm thinking you might have to have a landing partway down,
It's very steep.
and you certainly should have a railing.
Yeah.
I think it might be
have you
help
calcu- Sorry,
after you.
have you calculated how much material you're gonna remove from the bank?
Yes, the total, total earthwork volume that we're cutting, moving on the site is 267 cubic yards. So it's really quite minimal, and that's down to including excavating the foundation here. Coming out of that slope, coming out of this slope area, there's about 130 yards coming out of it, and the rest of it's just coming out the foundation area.
Okay.
And then when we're filling, there's a little bit of fill in the front yard and filling this in. So, we have a fill volume of 236, so there's like an extra 30 yards floating around. It's pretty close to a balanced site.
Is this on a slab or a full foundation?
A full foundation, with a walkout basement on the river side. So the house is elevated up.
I'd like to make a motion to continue application 1758 and schedule additional site visit.
I'll second. Any comment? Okay.
I would just say, I recommend that 3 or 4 other people that have not been out there, go out there to see this.
I think only 3 of us can go at a time.
It's very hard to visualize it out there, but when you get out there and see it in person,
Scarier. Yeah.
It's,
Uh, let's,
it's much different when you see it in person versus on paper. I think it definitely
Worth looking
shows
at.
light as to
Okay,
the
so
scope.
motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No opposed. Motion passes. You will be contacted, or I guess you,
Okay,
to
yeah.
schedule another site visit.
Okay.
And I think you'll see some new faces. Carl will probably go. I've been there, so I won't.
Okay.
Thad's been there, so you might want to go again. I don't know. We can't all go. Not allowed to. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to application 1757, 243 Bucks Hill Road. Tree removal.
This application was for the removal of 8 trees that are within the wetland area. There is a site report in front of each of you that I would say, if you haven't already been out on site, take a peek at it. It has photos from before the foliage had started growing in, from probably around March, I think that original site visit was. And then there's the photos from when we recently had gone out there.
Am I looking at the driveway here?
That's the street,
That's the street.
correct?
Okay. Are these close to the street then?
They are relatively close.
Yes, they are close to the street. They're very close to the street, actually. They're not close to power lines, for the most part.
Are they in the road setback? Or are they on his property?
That's a good question. I didn't look at that.
I do believe that in prior correspondence, he had gone through the proper channels to even see if this would fall on the responsibility of the town. So, I mean, we just say that it was not within the town right of way.
What is the nature of the wetland?
It was hard to see when we had actually gone out there, but if you see the photos from March, you can tell that, there is standing water there. There's active aquatic vegetation that is starting to sprout. Skunk cabbage was present.
It's definitely a wetland. It was
Absolutely.
wet when we were there. It looks like it stays wet most of the year, if not all of it. And it's actually quite nicely bordered. It's well-contained, fairly steep banks. The purpose of the tree removal is primarily aesthetic. I would judge. There is one tree, it's actually 2 trees, that are sort of intertwined, one of which is not in great shape. The other one is sort of leaning towards some wires at the house. It would not be particularly difficult to go in and take that one out. It's only about, what is that, maybe 2-3 inches wide?
Yeah,
It's almost a
it's
branch.
smaller one.
Yeah. If the others come down, some of which are were quite tall, a lot of the tops are missing. They're gonna fall into the wetland.
The tops were broken off.
Yeah, they're completely rotting out. But there's no, as far as we can tell, there's no pressing need to go in there and take them out. And it will be a real mess, and it'll have to be done by hand. Because you don't want,
Well, that was my next
it's a
question.
wetland, it's wetland enough, you don't want equipment in there.
Did they propose a method for doing it?
Well, it was just us, so I can't answer
Oh,
that.
applicant wasn't on?
Well, the only one I saw that was really, had a lot more justification was the one that was up there on the roadside near where the lines were coming into the house.
Yeah,
So that one, I wouldn't have much trouble voting yes for that, taking that down, as long as they were able to stay out of there with heavy equipment. But the other dead trees really didn't look like they were threatening anybody.
And
Didn't
this
look like-
power line that he's concerned about is on the road, not on
no.
the driveway?
The power line comes off the road, crosses the edge, near the edge of the wetland, and it passes, it's like 2 feet from these two trees, one of which is maybe 3 inches wide, and kind of leans over but looks healthy, and then a larger one, which isn't leaning over the power line and isn't healthy. And I don't think we have a good picture of that. It's very hard to get in there, there's a lot of other shrubbery in the way.
Yeah, it's thick, tall. And do you know what the source of the wetlands is? Is it runoff from the street,
No, I think it's a stream.
stream in there?
It's probably not running all the time.
Carl, the wetland's rather large, it's pretty functional. Bucks Hill bisects it, so the nature of this being a bowl is an aspect of it no longer being attached other than through the pipe under Bucks Hill to the other much larger wetland downstream as it works its way down the large mountaintop that is Bucks.
Thank you.
You think these are upland tree species that are dying
Well,
out
it's
because
hard-
they're
it's
getting too wet?
It's hard to tell with the dead ones.
Do we have an arborist report?
No.
I think maybe we should request one.
Well, the two around the corner that, down near his driveway, those things are, every bit of bark and everything is gone.
You can't tell what they
So
are.
you're not even gonna be able to figure out
Well,
what kind
if
of trees
it's
they
dead,
are.
it's a moot
Yeah,
point kind of.
and
It's
most
dead.
of them are dead.
But
Most
they're-
of them are dead?
The
They're
trees
still
are
in-
dying in that area dramatically. There were only a handful that had any canopy cover to them whatsoever,
The big ones, yeah.
the big ones, but the majority of the trees in this area are dying.
Well, I think this is not a complete application, in my opinion.
I can go with that.
I think we need to have an arborist, opinion on whether these trees are viable anymore or not. And some methodology about how they.
They're not viable.
okay.
They're dead or dying.
Okay, all right, well
Visibly
then,
dead or dying. You got big chunks of bark falling off,
Okay.
branches have fallen off.
Then maybe
I
what
kind of agree
he
with-
needs to do is just provide a means and methods
Yeah.
as to how he's gonna remove the trees.
Well, I would agree. I agree with that, on that, and
Okay.
you. But I also think there's really no reason to take most of them out,
I,
unless it's just aesthetics.
I thought they were dead or dying.
They are. But they're not threatening anything. And for the most part, if a tree dies and falls into wetland, that's where we tell people to leave it.
Well, if you measured it, one of those, or two of those dead trees, if the wind was just exactly in the right direction and they were leaning there, they would probably reach his driveway. Or they might reach the road on that side, that other intersecting road.
Yeah, there is one,
But the really, it doesn't look like it's really that threatening. I mean, it seems like pieces would break off from the top and it would just
That's what
gradually
they've
over
been
time,
doing.
it would rot and, you know.
Is there anything threatening the power line on his property?
there is one, you could even say 2 trees, and I think that and I would agree, that if he goes in there and has it taken out by hand, no equipment, because it's right in the wetland, that would be okay. The others, it's sort of worthless, and I would say no without prejudice. If something changes and he wants to come back in a year or two and say, look, this is really a big problem, I would certainly consider addressing that.
Is there any way for a tree service to reach those 2 dead trees you're mentioning, with a bucket truck, with an aerial bucket truck?
Oh,
with the truck-
probably.
With the truck parked?
But then as you're
And-
chopping the pieces off, they're gonna fall into the wetland. And if you wanna have
Not
somebody.
not if they cut it in small enough pieces so that the guy in the bucket can handle it.
Yeah, I've seen that done.
Yeah, it's
But-
not cheap, but it's,
I was gonna say, you're talking about thousands of dollars to
Yeah.
do that.
I just,
And that's not been proposed. We don't know what the methodology is for the removal.
and, you know, to do it by hand, you're gonna have the same issues, because now you gotta pay for somebody that's gonna climb the tree.
Uh-huh.
Do the same cutting.
Comes out the same way,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have to haul this stuff out of the wetland, you're gonna have to cut stuff down to get into it.
If they're dead, I don't think they're gonna climb them.
No, they won't climb. The
Right.
arborist I know will not climb a dead tree.
I mean, I would be okay with agreeing that he cut down that one tree that's got 2 branches, that's headed for the power lines that are coming into the house. That particular one, I think, going in there and taking that out would make sense. And then he could wait, you know, another 6 months or something. He could call us back out there next year and take a look and see whether there's anything else that really needs to be taken down, or whether it's just gonna gradually go down itself. I mean, those 2 big trees that were out on next to the driveway and the intersection with that other road, I mean, it didn't look like they were gonna hurt anybody. Just looked like, you know, they look a little ugly.
Yeah, I think that was it. But again, we haven't talked to anybody about any of that.
I think Deandra could briefly speak to early discussions with the applicant regarding his desirability for this project and his reasoning for why he wanted to move forward, and that might color the picture as far as what this commission might understand as being his financial desire to actually go about conducting the work you're talking about.
I don't have a problem with that, but it would be nice to also get some more explanation of how, he physically intends to go in and do it.
I know that he did, there were 2 or 3 tree services that he had reached out to. So they would stage outside of the wetlands area and kind of just cut them, drop them where they are. That was a discussion that we had previously, but I don't have any confirmation of
We don't
that
have a
from the
proposal
applicant
that says
directly.
that or anything formal.
Nope, the applicant, the main reason that they were going forward with this is because he did have concerns with just passersby, you know, vehicles, people, anybody walking by or driving by. So that was primarily the biggest concern. He had reached out to the insurance company, making sure that, hey, if, you know, I'm not allowed to cut these down because it's too expensive for him to do it at this point, you know, he's just gonna kind of wipe his hands clean and say, all right, so be it. So his biggest concern was for others.
and his potential liability if someone's injured.
Well, yeah, also, I thought he was pretty concerned about the power lines coming in
To his house,
to
correct?
his house. That I had more sympathy for that. I mean, it made more sense that you don't wanna have those lines taken out if at all possible.
And it's not a sidewalked area or an area where people are likely to be walking with any frequency. There's no old age home next door or anything, or a nursery. I just don't see that as an issue. How about we continue this, let him know we've continued it, if he'd like to come in and explain it, and we'd like some information on that, more detail on how they plan on getting this stuff out of there without causing damage to the wetlands. You get it? Does that make sense, Carl?
Yes.
That,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Any other comments?
Are they allowed to, hypothetically, if the tree service went in there, since the trees are located in the wetland, if the wind blew them down, they would naturally just stay there?
Yes.
If they cut them, can they just stay there?
If they come in and propose that, we probably said, that's a good idea.
I'm just, okay,
Don't haul them out at all.
just leave them right there.
We do that all the
Yeah,
time.
as long as there's not enough water flowing that it's gonna move them, you know, block a
And
pipe.
cause a hazard
Right.
somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
other than that
our
concern.
preference is to leave the wood, just let it rot naturally.
Yeah.
Generally.
Nutrients and it's a functional habitat. Those are the wetlands benefits.
Okay,
Okay, so
Need a
I'll.
motion to
I'll-
continue?
I'll motion that we continue this, and then
all right.
if you, Deandra,
I'll
would
reach out to the
contact the owner
applicant.
and explain our concerns to him, and
Absolutely.
maybe have him show up, that would help too.
Absolutely.
I'll second the motion to continue application 1757.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No opposition, motion passes. Thanks for the thoughts, everybody, it's great. Let's see. 2026, 14 Oak Tree Road, demolition repairs to property.
So,
I don't know
Mr.
what-
Candido,
anything
the
about this.
owner of the property, wasn't able to make it here today, but this one's been floating around ever since the flood. We wanted to make sure he got an application in, so he was covered under the fee waiving procedure that we had enacted. So he
Okay.
had gotten the application in time for the fee waiving, and then it just
Okay.
took him a little bit to get the site plan submitted. For the most part, we wanted to make sure he had a wetlands application and permit for the demolition if and when he chose to go for demolishing the structure as it was severely damaged by the storm. There are already erosion controls in place, and you guys have a site plan before you, and the proposal is to remove everything off-site once demolished and then stabilize, and then work on subsequent applications for any reconstruction thereafter.
Okay, so I've not looked at this one. What's specifically pending under this application?
Demolition,
Okay, of what?
the structure, you know, the oak tree structure where the old subway was,
No.
Yeah, you do.
right next to
Main
Playhouse
Street,
Corner?
Next to where Hine Brothers was in the next
Oh,
building.
that.
Yeah, that.
That's what it is? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, get rid of that thing.
Yeah, that.
So there's a
Absolutely.
brook that runs right
It
there.
got knocked off the
Yeah, but the brook is a
foundation.
wreck.
Correct, but it's a regulated activity.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Here we are.
Thank you, I didn't know where it was. Okay, that works for me. Any other comment? You know better than I do.
No, I haven't seen the site plan
Yeah, I
either. Does
haven't
it
seen
seem
it.
to be in order?
The site plan is in the Milana folder on your right there, correct?
That one?
Yep.
And so they've got the staging of the dumpsters, approximately how many dumpsters are going to be
That
proposed.
site's a wreck. They could, pretty much anything they do is an improvement.
They've got the silt fencing up, but there's also
They can
the
get the
location
shopping carts
there.
out of the stream and all that good stuff.
Sure.
All right.
It's funny. we were
It's
by
more of a
that the other
housekeeping
day.
measure with this one.
Unfortunately, didn't have a fortuitous fire to get rid of it.
Yeah, right. All right, motion to approve application F2-2026, 14 Oak Tree Road for demolition.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody? That's great. Does anybody know if Subway's gonna come back to town, or are they gone for good?
I think they're gone,
I suspect so.
unfortunately.
I like Mikey's better myself.
I agree.
And the liquor store.
I only went to that liquor store once. He's a nice guy, though.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, we're on to other business. Aquifer regulations. Our aquifer regulations expert says there's nothing to discuss. We'll move on. Officers' reports, we're not doing that today.
So there actually is one thing that was brought to my attention.
Thank you.
If you recall, 60 Sleepy Hollow, there was the demolition of the single-story structure. They're gonna be demolishing it and replacing it in the same footprint. But as part of this, he's been doing silt fencing and everything, but there is a tree that is severely leaning. And it is worrisome. Even the guy in the excavator was like, I don't wanna put my truck underneath that.
Oh, that bad?
Yes.
Oh, that one? I'm looking at the picture. Yeah, that's terrible.
So tree removal was not part of the approval, clearing or anything like that was not part of the resolution approval. Did you see? So in this sense, he would be looking to get your approval and blessing to be able to remove that. I did explain to him the issues with it of trying not to get any machinery in there and everything. He was fully understanding, but was hoping to reach out to the commission for that.
Fine, I'll move to accept the proposal, subject to drafting resolutions that encompass all our usual.
Perfect. And then a side
Well,
note,
that
same
is bad.
property, there was an existing shed on there. He tried moving it out of the way and it just completely,
Fell apart.
yes. So he's looking to replace the same thing, same footprint, not on slab, it would be on gravel. So he's looking for the commission's guidance as to how to handle that.
Is it-
Probably should have a permit modification
Yeah.
for
Permit
this.
modification, yep.
Modification for that one, Carl's
Okay,
right.
you
Is
bet.
it within the,
You can give them the verbal okay on the tree,
Okay,
but I think that and the other thing should probably be on a modification.
it shouldn't be a big deal, just get the application
Absolutely.
before the next meeting, I think we can
Yeah.
handle it. It's a modification, so we don't need to go through the bait.
you got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any correspondence that we need to pay attention to?
Nope, I've been, ton of correspondence with O&G, been happy with what I've been seeing there, been driving by that. Let's see, we've got the other applications in that are as well for the previous season desist, so I've been happy with the progress on those sites.
Good.
They've been really trying to work towards the stabilization of it. Ton of plantings have gone in, so I'm overall happy with what I've been seeing.
All right. I guess we're on to minutes. Do we have enough people who were there to approve any of these minutes? I don't think we do.
I haven't, I can't vote on those.
I can't either.
So we will defer that until the next meeting. And I think, on that note, if anybody wants to go home and would be happy to make a motion, we might be able to effect that.
Well, okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. So glad you're here.